Hello, everybody. It's I, the Grouchy Historian. Here we are, our last week of videos. And this week, take on one of my favorite topics. That's right, the modern American media. Why do Americans distrust the news? In a recent survey, I think American news had like the least trust in the world from their own citizens. Shocking, isn't it? No, not really. Is there still such a thing as unbiased reporting? Where can reliable news be found? I mean, let's be honest. I've followed this topic for a really, really long time, since I was a wee midshipman, and we were required to read a newspaper article every day. We were required to read one newspaper article and one sports article every day as a plebe. And we got three newspapers in my room because we had three midshipmen in my room. So we got three newspapers. We got the Washington Post, the New York Times, and the Washington Times, which is a brand new paper at the time. And it was pretty interesting. It became very obvious to me quickly that the Washington Post, there was a reason that we used to call it when we were midshipmen, Pravda on the Potomac. Yeah, hasn't gotten any better, in my opinion. In fact, it's gotten so much worse. In my opinion. There are, in my opinion, very few reliable single news sources. You can't really turn on, let's be honest, MSNBC, CNN, or even Fox News and get completely unbiased reporting. The difference is, and this is interesting, this is something I've always observed, is in Britain, they have freedom of the press, wide variety of news. But in Britain, the newspapers, for the most part, make no bones about their political affiliation, right? If you read The Guardian, it's a lefty paper. No doubt about it. They make no bones about it. They don't apologize about it. They are way left of center, and they're perfectly fine with that. Other newspapers are more to the right. Here in America, there's this sort of, I believe, false illusion that, of course, news sources just report the news. They just report the facts, just the facts, man. No, it hasn't happened that way in a really, 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 really long time. I've been watching the news. I grew up watching Walter Cronkite, and that's the way it is. And my parents watched Walter Cronkite every night until he went off the air. And those were the days when, for the most part, they report the news. For the most part. Nowadays, it's very hard to distinguish between news and opinion. And some people are very are a little more honest about the fact that their shows on cable news networks are opinion shows, and they make no bones about their opinions. Other of them still try to hide behind the facade of being a fair and impartial journalist. There's no such thing. In fact, there's actually a cottage industry, which I find hilarious sometimes on the internet, of news sites that critique the websites that critique the other guy's news sites, right? You can find news sites that pick apart Fox News. You can find other websites, that pick apart Fox News. You can find other websites that pick apart CNN and MSNBC. It's a cottage industry, looking at the bias in the other guy's news service, not looking at the bias in your own news service, which I found interesting, the old Plank and Twig. So yeah, that's where we are. But it's important, because if you don't understand that there's no such thing as an unbiased news source anymore, you tend to gravitate, and I am often as guilty as this as the next person, gravitate toward news that fits your own worldview. This is bad. I grew up working various jobs in various agencies that we won't go into too much detail here, where you had to look at all sorts of sources and you had to sort through them. This is why one of the things that I emphasized in this particular course is your ability to do your own research, look at your own sources, sort through them, synthesize them, analyze them, homogenize them. Okay, because that's how you're going to do with the news, because that's the only way you can get to any resemblance of the actual facts of a particular situation. And of course, to be fair, you can't trust video either. So people say, oh, we're going live to the scene, here's video. There's one thing I learned in SEER school a really, really, really long time ago when they were talking about propaganda. Yep, that's the word I'm using, propaganda. They said, believe none of what you hear and half of what you see. That's pretty good. It's a pretty good rule of thumb for me. I generally don't believe anything I hear from most broadcast news reporters these days, particularly from the three big networks and most of the cable news. I just don't believe them because I know they have a bias. I don't trust their video footage most of the time either, because I know that it can be and has been and has shown to be selectively edited, right? That's why when you see my favorite thing, when you see internet video from Twitter, it's a live Twitter feed. Yeah, I don't trust that either, because we later find out that it has been it's been edited. So you have to be very, very skeptical of everything you see, both on the internet and on cable news. Here's my rule of thumb for y'all. I got this from my man Carl von Clausewitz, right? He said, in any war, intelligence is at best, I'll paraphrase here, is at best time late. It's usually faulty, and worse, it's outright lies. So here's my rule of thumb, and you can test this out for yourselves this week. Anytime there's a controversial news story, particularly if it's on one news network reporting about the other side, right? So for example, if you hear a news story from CNN about a Republican politician, I wouldn't believe anything they say for at least 24 hours. This was kind of the rule that I learned during the last administration, because it was just continual 24 hours bombardment of horrible, nasty news. Because I didn't believe anything for 72 hours until I was able to look up a variety of sources and either confirm or deny the basic facts that they were trying to peddle. Because we're in this part of what the challenge is. And I remember I was there when CNN went live and everybody's like, who wants to watch news 24/7? That's crazy. But here we are, we're in a 24-hour news cycle. And that's part of the reason I think why Americans distrust the news, because you don't get any perspective, context, or real expertise. It's like, got to get the headline out before the next guy. Got to get the most sensational headline. Got to get the viewers. Got to get the ratings. It's not about the facts. It's about the ratings, right? That's cable news in a nutshell. So you have to take pretty much everything you see, hear, and read on the internet with a ginormous grain of salt, and you have to do your own fact checking. Now, there are some sites that will help you with this. And again, I'm going to leave this up to you this week to look at what would you consider your, top 4 or 5 sources of news. Do you have 4 or 5 sources of news? Do you even care about the news? Well, you should, because it's going to be what people are talking about. Because you can whip out your cell phone and find out what's going on around the world instantaneously, right now, whether it's true or not. And that's going to be for you to decide. So this is where we end. I hope you've enjoyed the course. I hope you've gotten something out of it. I hope you've learned something from it, because I can tell you for a fact, I learned a great deal putting this course together. And I'm really pretty satisfied with that, because I always like learning new things. I like having maybe a little bit my worldview challenged. I like seeing different viewpoints, even if I don't necessarily agree with them. And I hope that you've stretched yourself a little bit in this course and learned something that you didn't know before. So here we are. This is the end. I hope you've enjoyed it, and kind of looking forward to getting feedback from you on the course. And hopefully you've been able to form your own opinion about things and started thinking for yourselves about some of the great issues of the day, because you are going to be the voters of the future. As soon as you turn 18, right? You're going to be able to vote in federal elections, vote for a president, vote for a congressman. Need to be informed. Okay, hopefully now you are a little bit more.